All right, let's start with the big story that we're tracking on WION. An announcement that will have far-reaching consequences. Iran has stated that it will breach the limit that had been set on uranium enrichment today in violation of the landmark 2015 nuclear agreement. Now, Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that Iran still wants to salvage the deal, but has blamed the European nations for having failed to live up to their commitments on their side of the deal. A top Iranian official has said that the technical preparations for the new level of enrichment will be completed within a few hours, and enrichment over 3.67% will begin forthwith. Now, the Iranian announcement marks the latest breach of the accord. In the month of May, remember, Iran had stepped up its production of enriched uranium, which can be used to make fuel for reactors. Now, Iran is in fact acting on its 8th of May threat to suspend parts of the nuclear agreement in response to US President Donald Trump's reimposition of sanctions. Now, the United States, remember, had pulled out unilaterally of the agreement in the month of May last year. And of course, one of the nations that's been pretty quick to respond is Israel, that has criticized the announcement by Tehran, stating that this move is counterproductive. Israel's energy minister has said while the increase was moderate, Iran has begun its march towards nuclear weapons. This of course, is the stand by the Israelis. All right, now for more on this, we are joined in by Mr. Reza Khaste, who's a journalist who's joining us live, who's joining us over the phone line from Tehran. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Khaste. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on this broadcast on WION. And let me begin by asking you this. Give us precisely a sense of what exactly has been announced by Tehran today.
Hi, good afternoon. Good to be with you. Actually, Iran announced what it had earlier vowed to do today after the 60-day deadline it had given the Europeans to compensate for the U.S. withdrawal from the nuclear deal. Actually, this is a step-by-step withdrawal from the JCPOA, but Iran has not officially withdrawn from the deal yet. Mr. Araghchi, Deputy Foreign Minister, announced today that this second phase will start today in a few hours. Based on that, Iran will boost its enrichment level to beyond 3.67%. And after that, following measures would start in the third and fourth phases if the talks with the Europeans fail. Last night, Iran's president had a phone conversation with French President Macron. During that conversation, France had constructive talks with Iran. The two sides agreed to continue negotiations between Iran and Europe to reach a solution, actually, to stop the withdrawal of Iran from the deal. But we should wait and see what and where the talks will head to.
Absolutely, indeed. And also, you know, the question that I feel compelled to ask you is that Iran wants to continue on with its negotiations with the European Union, or at least the member states of the European Union who are signatories of the deal, but not with the United States, even though the US President Donald Trump and also Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State of the United States, have said that they want to have talks and negotiations with Tehran without any preconditions. Why does Iran not want to come to the negotiating table with the US President?
Yes, indeed. Iran is not going to hold bilateral talks with the US, but today we announced that the Iranian government actually announced that US is welcome to join the talks between Iran and the European partners in case they cancel and remove the sanctions that they have reimposed on the country. Actually, following the breaches of the commitment by the U.S. and Trump's withdrawal from the deal, Iran no longer trusts the U.S. as it didn't have any trust on the country since 40 years ago. But now, following the failed nuclear talks and nuclear deal between Iran and the P5+1, Iran is no longer going to hold talks with the Trump administration, at least, until the 2020 elections, at least. Iran is waiting to see whether the Democrats are going to power again or not. And we've heard that Iran has been told by Democrats not to hold any talks with the Trump administration, even without any preconditions, actually.
You know, the point that I'm trying to make, Mr. Khasteh, is that at this point of time, what options does Iran realistically have? Now, Trump, in the statement that he made after having, you know, at the last minute withdrawn the aerial strikes after the incident of Iran having shot down the U.S. drone, he said that he's actually willing to, you know, give a new sort of definition to Iran-U.S. relations. He said, make Iran great again is something that is okay with him. Why would Iran not want to grab that opportunity and still persist on negotiating with certain members of the European Union nations, even though just last week the United Kingdom had seized an Iranian oil tanker off the coast of Gibraltar?
Actually, the flip-flop policy of the Trump administration and the president himself does not allow Iran to trust and enter into new negotiations with the U.S. So there's offers of talks by the Trump administration are not actually in conformity with the sanctions they impose on the country while offering those negotiations without preconditions to Iran.
Right.
So Iran is going to choose the talks and negotiations with the Europeans instead, and it has invited the U.S. to join those talks as well, but I'm sure that it is not going to hold bilateral talks with the Trump administration whatsoever.
All right. And also, how do you see the entire Iranian crisis going forward from here? Iran has said that it will now enrich uranium to 5% purity levels. It won't have any kind of bilateral talks with the United States. How far is Iran willing to up the ante in this case?
Actually, it is a symbolic move to move beyond the 3.67% actually, but I guess the 5% is for now. The option is the option that Iran is going to choose, as the leader's aide, Mr. Velayati, hinted yesterday or the day before yesterday, actually. But I guess the talks between Iran and the Europeans are going to focus on preventing a higher enrichment level, because Europe actually is concerned that Iran may continue these measures to even beyond such enrichment levels, and it is still far less than the 90 or 95% needed for the developing a nuclear weapon, but it's still concerning for Europeans.
Absolutely, indeed. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Raza Khasteh, for joining us on WION and getting us all those insights.